Okay, folks, it's 1:30 local time there. I see Dr. Poma and Mr. Lampkin are there. I can see the backs of the heads of the Empire folks. Is everybody ready to proceed?
Mr. Harwood?
Yes, sir, Mr.
Yeah,
Shavers.
yes, sir. One thing, this morning I forgot to do a short read on that Veritex wants me to do. So sometime before this proceeding concludes, I would like to do that at your discretion.
How long is this read on?
Uh, Probably 15 to 20 seconds.
Oh, well, why don't you, if it's okay with the chairman, let's just knock it out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine with me, by all means.
Okay, let me get my recording started and I'll go ahead and do that. Good afternoon. My name is John Shavers. I'm a reporter assigned by Veritex to take the record of this proceeding. I am a reporter authorized to take acknowledgments and to administer oaths in Texas. Absent an objection on the record before any witness is sworn, all parties and witnesses understand and agree that any certified transcript produced from the recordings of this proceeding is intended for all uses permitted under applicable procedural and evidentiary rules and laws in the same manner as the proceeding recorded by stenographic means and shall constitute written stipulation of such. That's it, Mr. Harwood.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shavers. Are we ready in the room, Ms. Apodaca?
Yes, we're ready.
All right, I'm Dr. Ampoma. I guess we'll start with you on the theory that you have probably more questions, and maybe some of the answers will also answer questions that Mr. Lampkin has, not to short him in any way, shape, or form, but if you don't mind, if you'd take the lead.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maguire, thanks so much for your testimony today. So I do have some few questions for you, and I will ask if Goodnight's number 3 testimony, Mr. Maguire can, and 4, 5, Goodnight's rebuttal statement, all will be more or less open up, so I can go through that.
Dr. Ampoma, Commissioner Ampoma, just so I'm clear, which documents you want the rebuttal statement?
Yeah, so I want the Goodnight number 3 testimony.
The supplemental testimony?
No, this will be the original testimony, Goodnight number 3 testimony, and exhibits B1 to B26, Preston Maguire.
Okay.
And then 27 to 35, Preston, that's number 4. That would be number 4.
When you say number 4 or number 3, what are you referring to?
Okay, so I'll be going through the number 3, number 4, number 5, all interchangeably.
Paragraphs, number 3, number 4? No, I'm sorry. I'm just.
The exhibits.
Oh, exhibits.
Yeah.
From the slide presentation?
No.
No, from the direct testimony. Okay,
Yeah,
I apologize.
from the direct testimony.
Okay, I apologize. I'll get there and I'll get everything up. The files are big, so I'm going to try to open them only one at a time as we need them, because Adobe doesn't like very big files. So I'll do that slowly over time.
Okay.
So I'll start with
The number 3.
what was it? Exhibit 3. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Ampoma, is this the exhibit 3 that you're asking about?
No, this is different from what I have. So the direct testimony and exhibits B1 to B26.
B1 is his resume. B2 is this overview. Oh, okay, I see. Okay. So this slide?
That entire portion.
I'm sorry, what?
The testimony and exhibits, so when they were sent to us, it was Goodnight 3, 4, and 5, exhibits 1 through 26, exhibits 27 through 35, and then 36 through whatever. And so those are Goodnight 3, 4, and 5.
So I apologize. Is it possible for me to see, just so I'm clear about what it is? I want to make sure we know.
If I may.
Okay, you guys mind if I approach so I can see? Maybe if you tell me what exactly,
Go by the exhibit stamps on them.
the exhibit stamps. So, yeah. You can tell me what exhibit number it is. If it's B1, B2, B3, so there's exhibits attached. Oh, what paragraph? Yeah, if you just tell me the paragraphs, I'll go to it. Okay, okay. I apologize. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Magua, sorry for the for the delay. Let's go to paragraph number 6, which will be the summary. Thank you. So on the bullet point number 1, and we'll go through this quickly because definitely you do have a lot of information to substantiate this. Now, for the first bullet point, I hope you can see the screen.
I can, yes, sir.
Okay, so the first bullet point number 1, my question for you is, can you explain this briefly based on material balance? Or let's say, did you utilize material balance in coming up with this conclusion?
No, we did not. With that, this conclusion is based on our how our wells are performing.
So when you say it's based on how your wells were performing, in terms of petroleum engineering, I mean, what analysis is that?
So it's just an observation of how the wells are performing. They can inject at very, very high rates at very, very low operating pressures.
Are you familiar with the material balance term?
Yes, I am. Yep.
And did you use material balance in any of your analysis?
No, we have not. Not in detail.
Now, on number 2, you describe how you talk about the extensive pressure differential between the Greenberg and San Andres aquifers 1. You're saying that the presence of an effective geologic barrier between the two formations. I want to ask you, did you use RFT to also help you in to coming up with this conclusion?
No, we did not use RFTs. It was based on the differences in pressures that we observed from multiple different data sets. The shut-in pressures from the Grayberg wells, the drilling experience where we were able to hold a column of drilling fluid while drilling through the Grayberg. And then once we passed below what is the confining layer that separates these two reservoirs, we see a completely different reservoir system down below that confining layer. So that pressure differential that we see across the field could not be sustained for very long periods of time if those formations were in communication. So we feel pretty strong that these two separate reservoirs are isolated from one another.
So based on all the testimonies that we've listened for a couple of multiple weeks, Empire and then Goodnight experts utilize the RFT to describe the pressure profile within the grain bag. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree that there was some RFTs that were taken in the Grayberg. There was no RFTs taken below the confining layer that separates these two reservoirs. But even in the RFTs that we have seen, John Macbeth talked about that there's big pressure differentials between very small vertical distances that also show that there's isolation in different zones within the Grayberg itself, and a lot of that has been discussed through all the different conformance issues. The Grayberg is a very highly compartmentalized reservoir in and of itself, but all those compartments in the Grayberg reservoir are totally separated from the disposal reservoir.
You know, the reason why I brought that up, as you said, the Greenberg do have a lot of compartments, and even it can be shown right on the pressure based on what you just said. Now, you picked a lot of barriers within the San Andres. Did you do any analysis using pressure data to confirm these barriers that you picked in the San Andres formation?
Well, the only one that I can speak to confidently is the one that's separating these two reservoirs. We did not do any analysis within the disposal reservoir to see isolation within the disposal reservoir. But we do see that there's a change in reservoir characteristics once we passed from the Grayberg into the disposal reservoir.
So is it your testimony that you did not include any engineering data in supporting those barriers that you picked in the San Andres?
No, I think we did. I talked about that in my direct testimony as well as my presentation. I pointed to wells that are very close to each other, one being in the disposal reservoir, one being in the Grayberg, and those pressures are very, very different.
Mr. Rankin, can we go to number 12? So on number 12, I'm going to read from line 3 from the bottom. So it said, Goodnight gave extensive testimony that its San Andres disposal zone at the EMSU has been tested and confirmed to be a non-hydrocarbon bearing aquifer and not a candidate for ROZ. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir, you did.
Is this statement supported by the two other witnesses that were presented by Goodnight, specifically Dr. Davidson and then also Mr. Knight?
Yes, I believe so. I guess given that, I would slightly modify that. They did put some very, very minor oil saturations in the disposal zone, but they're intermittent and spread out and at very, very low saturation. So to be technically correct, non-hydrocarbon, we do see some minor indications, but they are not at the levels that would meet an ROZ definitions. And as those experts explained, they do not feel that they are producible. So and Dr. Davison also said that they were abandoned migration pathways and not a really a producible hydrocarbons.
So is it your testimony to the commission that if we go back and look at all the transcripts, that based on the discussions that I had, even Empire's councils had with Dr. Davidson and Mr. Knight, there is nowhere where they consider that there is ROZ, in fact, in the Upper San Andres?
Well, I think that they were pretty clear that there's no ROZ in the disposal zone. Now, you guys have heard a lot of testimony about where the chronostratigraphic pick for the top of the San Andreas is and how difficult that is to pick. Empire claims they have it right. I disagree. I don't think that they necessarily have it exactly correct for the chronostratigraphic pick, but that would be the interval that Dr. Davidson and Mr. Knights was referring to was the interval that is above the confining layer that separates the two reservoirs that we're talking about here.
So based on the cross-examination, there were cross-sections shown to the commission where your PEFs are all over the San Andreas. Do you dispute that?
They are all over what we would define as San Andreas. They are not in intervals that Empire would define as the San Andreas.
Thank you for that. Can we go to, can you bring up the bottom part up where it starts with the observation? Yeah.
The which one?
Yeah, just scroll up a little bit. Yeah, right there. Thank you. Go down. Go to still number 12, but yeah, right there. Thank you. So we will go to the what has been termed as a cartoon, where you do have all the barriers that are in there. But I want to ask you if you utilize any geological information, from the core, specifically to support the barriers that you picked in the San Andreas.
Yes, the 679 core has a competent confining layer that's shown by the vertical permeability that was measured in that core. That equates to the zone that we've correlated across the field and isolates these two reservoirs from one another.
Can we go to page 105? Where we do have the cartoon, as has been called. Okay. Thank you. It sounds like I'm looking at a different one.
Dr. Mpoma, which exhibit at the bottom is it?
Okay, let me try to find that.
B9. It's B9.
Okay, one moment.
Okay, this is good. Thank you. So, sir, I just want to confirm that the methodology that you use in picking these barriers is 7% porosity. Is that correct?
Yes, that was generally the methodology we used, and that was supported by the core data that we had at the time. We got the additional core data from Empire from the 679, and it confirmed that we probably could have drawn some of these barriers a little bit thicker given the core data. That confining interval that I was showing had intervals of porosity that were as high as 15, 16, 17% and had zero vertical perm.
Now, have you done any geological analysis on each of these barriers that you've picked?
I guess what specifically are you looking for? I'm going to need a little bit more specific there.
Yeah, let me give you more. So can you point to the commission where, let's say, we were seeing some anhydrides in the core, and even Dr. Davidson talked about anhydride being a potential ceiling for barriers that he talked about. Can you show right here on this cross section where we have anhydride that has been mapped?
Sure. So there's intervals that have elevated anhydrite material, and it's found at the top of this area that we're showing here. I have an open hole log with the Rhino. That was the primary well that I used in building this cross section. It was the most recent and up-to-date data. We can see intervals at the top of there where it's very, very low porosity. Calculating to negative porosity on a dolomite matrix. The PE was getting closer to 5, indicating that there was anhydrite material in there. Now, I'm not willing to say that it's 100% anhydrite, but there are definitely intervals at the top that are more than, well, I didn't do an exact percentage analysis on there, but there's intervals in that zone that have significant anhydrite content in there, as well as very, very tight dolomite with no porosity.
So, sir, you are referring to the Rhino well.
That's
been?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
So is there any core? Is there any spectral gamma ray logs? Is there any detailed logs that have been evaluated to confirm that there is anhydrite, even the cuttings, to confirm that indeed there is existence of an anhydrite?
Yeah, so the anhydrite material in the cuttings, it's basically powderized with the drill bit. There was not any described in the mud log. We did see some anhydrites described in the 679 core, but using the triple combo information that we have here with the Rhino, Dr. Davidson was able to calculate these intervals of elevated anhydrites as I was describing.
So, sir, if I recall correctly, Dr. Davidson said he used a different well outside the EMSU to check the signature. So he did not actually, based on his testimony, testify that he had any anhydrite within the EMSU. You can tell me if I'm wrong or not. The transcripts are there.
No, yeah, he definitely did do a mineralogical analysis using the Rhino well, and that's included in his testimony.
Okay, we will check into that. So, I do know, at least based on my experience, that carbonates do have really low porosities. I've even seen, you are familiar with the Devonian, where porosity goes to like 4%, and we say that it is an injection zone. Can you provide a reference to the commission where 7% has been used as a cutoff to say that it is a barrier in the petroleum engineering industry?
Yeah, so the 7% comes from porosity and perm cross plots that we had for the San Andres, and that 7% equated to a 0.5 millidarcy permeability, which is, in my opinion, a effective seal for flow.
So, sir, your response is your personal opinion, not necessarily published in any literature.
It was, I mean, I've seen 0.5 used as a permeability cutoff in different areas. That's just the one that I can't point to a specific citation right now at this point. But I do know that in other fields, a 7% cutoff has been, or a 0.5 millidarcy cutoff has been used to define barriers.
So, sir, based on the cross, I heard about 7% porosity that you used as your methodology. So, are you changing your testimony now?
I don't believe I changed my testimony. I explained it a little bit better as to what that 7% equated to in a permeability standpoint, but no, I'm not changing that testimony.
So the barrier analysis that you did, I do see there is one that you plotted the vertical permeability for the for the well 679. Did you correlate this particular let's say barrier that you're showing here, we're showing on the screen, to core?
Yes, so I'll point you on the very left-hand side of this figure here is the EMSU 460. That well is 300 feet from the cord well, and that low vertical permeability that I described in that core plot equates to that interval that's showing as blue at the top of the San Andreas on the left-hand side of this. And that's what I correlated across this particular cross-section.
So did your analysis, was your analysis collaborated by any of them, Goodnight's experts?
Yes, we had discussions, and they agreed that with that methodology, and yeah, they agreed.
Now, my question was, did they collaborate your assessment as an evidence to, or let's say through a testimony to the commission?
I guess I'm a little lost on the question. Yes, they agreed with it, and I think they used that knowledge in a lot of their testimony and corroborated that statement throughout all of their testimonies.
Mr. Rankin, can we go back to number 13?
Paragraph 13.
Paragraph 13, sorry. Thank you. So I'm going to read the bold, where it's been bolded, the bottom of that. So you said that Empire was unable to show through evidence that one, the San Andreas disposal zone had ever produced any oil. The San Andreas contains recoverable hydrocarbons. And if the hydrocarbon exists, can be produced in paying quantities. Do you still stand by this?
Well, yes, I do stand by this because this particular paragraph was discussing the hearing that was had on the Piazza case. And in that case, Empire really provided no technical evidence. There was a geologist didn't testify on behalf of Empire. I don't believe an engineer testified on behalf of Empire. There was a Mr. Eugene Sweeney. I think he was a higher up corporate representative, maybe the VP of operations or the chief operating officer, but he did not discuss any technical evidence in his testimony. So I do stand by this as it relates to the Piazza case that was had in case number 22626.
So I'm bringing it back to this particular case. So for this particular case, do you believe that this statement is still true?
Yes.
Explain to the commission how ROZ will be produced.
Well, there's a few different methods. One of them is obviously what we've been discussing here is the CO2 flood. But the other one is the depressuring method that I discussed in my testimony, and that test was effectively enacted by the water supply wells, and that test was negative.
So when you made that conclusion, did you cross-check with the evidence or the testimony that Mr. West provided to the commission, where he used 18% as a recovery factor?
I remember him stating that. I guess again, I'm a little lost on the question. My apologies.
So my question to you, you said you still stand by that statement where there is no ROZ, there's no recoverable ROZ. So I'm asking you, based on that testimony that we listened for multiple weeks, that was capped by Mr. West, is it your testimony that what he presented is not necessarily true?
I think that 18% recovery factor is a guess at best and not substantiated. I think that Mr. John Macbeth discussed that in detail in his testimony.
What could have been the recovery factor?
Well, there's no recovery factor has been established to date. There's no production in what we call San Andres. There's no production in what Empire calls San Andres. Empire has admitted that there has been zero production to date in the San Andres.
And you believe that the oil that we saw, at least from the core, cannot be produced through CO2 injection?
There might be some oil in that core that could be produced by CO2 injection, but it's above what we call the San Andres and above our confining layer. I don't think that there's any evidence that is establishing that there is recoverable hydrocarbon in the disposal zone. But yeah, like I said, in the core, there is some hydrocarbon content that's below the oil water contact in the Grayberg that goes down in the transition zone or the ROZ just below the oil water contact. I think that Empire wants to go try to get that oil. They can definitely go try to do that, and our operations will have no effect on that because all of that hydrocarbon is above the confining layer that separates our reservoir from that reservoir. And I don't think that there would be any interference if Empire wanted to try to go chase that oil if they so chose.
So your description, you're talking about the formation that Empire is saying is an ROZ or is a San Andres. Is that correct?
They call it San Andres. We did not call it San Andres, but yes, I'm talking about that interval that's above our confining layer that separates these two reservoirs.
Do you remember that one of your witnesses talked about how Goodnight did not spend extensive amount of effort in characterizing the San Andres? Even Mr. Knight talked about the San Andres is not even widely described or known. So why should the commission more or less agree to your description of the San Andres?
Well, like I said, the chronostratigraphic pick for the San Andres is very difficult to pick in well logs. That was described by Dr. Lindsay. That was described by the unit documents that unitized the formation. So for the exact chronostratigraphic pick for the San Andres, it's difficult. What we described as the San Andres, as I described in my testimony, I called it the functional top of the San Andres. The San Andres in the EMSU has always been the water management interval for disposal and water supply. And so that when we defined the San Andres, we defined that water management interval as it's been used for decades in the EMSU. That interval is completely different from everything above it. To me, it does not matter what you call that interval above it. I think that we need to be talking about the different reservoirs here. Be an interesting geological academic exercise to find that chronostratigraphic pick and correlate that around the field. But for this case, I don't really think that that should have much weight in this hearing.
So you talked about weight. Now, you also talked about confirming that there is some ROZ somewhere. that if Empire wants, they can proceed and then go for it. And they want to go for it, but they believe that your operations is impacting them. And let me also say that, you have a different picks. Let me put it this way. Did any of Goodnight's experts collaborated your pick independently of what you did?
Yes, they corroborated that the reservoir where I have delineated the that difference in those reservoirs, they did agree with that delineation. Now going back to the chronostratigraphic pick of the San Andres, no, nobody did that work.
So you listen to Empire's experts, multiple experts doing their own independent analysis on the topics. And even there was a discussion where even at some point they need to come to a compromise. For Goodnight's experts, more or less relied only on the top that you provided to them. So why should the commission more or less agree with your pick compared to multiple experts doing independent work and more or less coming to the same conclusion?
I disagree that they came to the same conclusion. They had different picks. Their picks disagreed with one another. I described some of that in my testimony, and that just goes to how difficult picking that chronostratigraphic top of the San Andres in the EMSU really is. It's been done differently throughout the history of the EMSU. So I think that our pick of what we're calling the San Andres, or as I've defined it, the water management zone, is the best. It's the most reasonable place to put that separation of these two different reservoirs, which act completely different from one another. I think the reservoirs. We can talk about the geology and the timelines that are found within this interval here, but what really matters here is the different reservoirs.
Mr. Rankin, do you have a copy of the unitization document? So that will be Empire's exhibit number 1.
I can pull it up if you give me a moment.
Sure.
I may need to close some windows.
I hope you did not close the number 3. Because
No, I don't know. Maybe I did, but I'll go back to it.
So I'm interested in session 10. Session
Okay.
10.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I think it's up to the top. One moment. This is
Yeah, page 35 of.
that's the purchase sale.
Yeah.
What page do you think it was?
Yeah, 35.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of the PDF.
I'm getting there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Maguire, I asked previous Empire Goodnight's experts, and they thought that you'd be the one to really respond to this question.
Okay.
So, Section 10 talks about the rights and obligation of the unit operator. So I don't want to read all of it, but I just want you to read and then tell the commission your understanding on this session.
Okay, you're asking for what my understanding of this?
Yes.
Well, one, I'm not a lawyer, so might not be the perfect person to answer this, but I guess my overall thoughts about this is that it says unitized substances. I take that to be oil. There's no oil. Other experts have described that they feel that there's no producible oil in this, and that the San Andres is largely an aquifer, and the OCD has no right to unitize an aquifer. I feel like the San Andres was unitized erroneously. It never had primary production. And my understanding is that to be unitized, it has to be reasonably defined by a primary production. Empire agrees that the San Andres has never produced a barrel of oil, and for sure has not been reasonably defined. So therefore, I think that most of this document should not apply to the San Andres itself.
Okay, so I will take them one after the other, and we are lay people, so we'll try to probably see if we can understand it. And hopefully the lawyers will discuss that in their closings as well. So they talk about, except as otherwise specifically provided herein, the exclusive right, privilege, and duty of exercising any and all rights of the parties hereto, including surface rights. So I'll probably skip to producing, storing. So I'm more interested in the producing and then also the storing. So based on this unitization document, today, until let's say this one is amended or more or less reevaluated and whatever is done, this is the working documentation that Empire do have. Don't you believe that they do have the exclusive rights to produce the ROZ that they've identified, potential ROZ that they've shown to the commission in the San Andres?
Yeah, they operate the unit, which means that they hold those leases, and so to the extent that there is any minerals in the leases, they have the right to produce those. But this does not say that they actually own the pore space. They own the minerals in the pore space if there's any there to be had.
Well, I'm a lay person, but the way I read this, my understanding is that they do have the authority vested, in this document, that they have the right to produce, even when it comes to storing. It sounds like they do have the right to do that. Do you agree with me on that?
I would disagree with that, given my understanding of how the unitization works.
So have you seen, and this question has been asked, but just for completeness, have you seen any operator or any company being allowed to inject into someone's unitized zone? Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Where?
EMSU, North Monument, and AGU.
So that is going to be the first one. Is that correct?
Well, those three, I'm aware of those three. Now, I haven't gone and looked for this specific case all over the Permian Basin, but those are the three that I'm aware of.
Mr. Rankin, if we can go back to our previous document, I'm interested in number 18, paragraph 18, sorry.
Dr. Mpoma, just so I know, will you want to go back to the unit agreement at some point, or can I close that document?
No, you can close that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
It'll make my Adobe function.
Yeah, you can close that. Okay. Okay, so on the 18, so as you described, these are all issues that were discussed during the Piazzo hearing, and I believe that it applies to this case as well. So we're going to go through that, and it's part of your testimony. So we're just going to go through that, at least for my understanding. Now, Mr. Rankin, if you can scroll up a little bit to page 9. Yeah, okay, thank you. So in there, you're saying that first, the division expressed concerns that the proposed injection could cause class 2 disposal fluids to encroach towards the northeast and interior of the EMSU where the San Andres was being used as a source of water for Greenberg water flood, UL injection wells, and may not be compatible with the San Andres. Now, to the San Andres formation fluids. So let's just talk about that portion. Do you agree with that statement?
No, absolutely not. None of that evidence was presented in that hearing, and so we were quite surprised at that ruling because no evidence was to that nature was discussed in that hearing. There was, like I said earlier, really no technical evidence was presented by Empire in that case. So it's my opinion that ruling was unjust, and because there was no evidence presented to support that conclusion when that order was issued.
Yeah, so when I ask questions about this, I really want to discuss that in the premise of this hearing, not necessarily the Piazza hearing. So here, don't you believe that there has been an evidence that has been more or less presented to the commission with regards to the water chemistry changes from, even though Goodnight treats their water before injection, but don't you believe that they presented evidence here?
Yes, in this particular case, lots of evidence has been discussed. I would not disagree that our water chemistry is different than what's in the San Andres, but I would also note that incompatible water has been injected into the San Andres. Confirmed incompatible water has been injected into the San Andres since the 1950s from the Grayberg. It's documented that those two formation fluids are incompatible. I have not seen a analysis stating that our fluid is incompatible. That analysis has not been done, so there's no evidence out there. Yes, they're different, but are they incompatible? I don't know. Furthermore, there's additionally no evidence that the water chemistry of the one remaining water supply well in the EMSU has changed, or that our water has made it up there, or if it will ever make it up there. So I don't think that the water chemistry issues have been necessarily what's the word I'm looking for here? I went blank. Yeah, there's no evidence that the water supply well has had a change in chemistry as a result of our injections. So therefore, I don't think we can't think about what may happen or may not happen in the future. I think if we're going to have a big change in the regulatory environment here, that needs to be based on evidence, overwhelming evidence.
I was going to go there when you talked about now, but what about the future?
I think I'm not convinced that our water will make it to the water supply well. That's the one left. It's the most distal from our well, and I'm not convinced that our water is even migrating that direction. So no, I don't want to speak. I don't want to pontificate or anything like that, and I don't think that the commission should pontificate. I think that they need to see the evidence that's been presented to date and rule on the evidence that's presented to date. And if that evidence changes in the future, Empire can come back to this commission and renew their applications with new evidence.
So you don't believe, okay, let me ask you this way. So you said that you do not believe that there could even be any communication. Did you do any material balance analysis or did you do any modeling to substantiate your claim?
No, we have not done any modeling. I just have I have thoughts about how the water moves within the reservoir.
And then most of these water supply are all open hole completions?
No, two of them were cased and perfed while the others were open hole. The first two, the 457 and the 458 were cased and perfed. The remaining four were open hole.
So going back to the second part that you said this one's from OCD. So the same second, the division determined Empire had provided sufficient evidence for continued assessment of the unitized interval for potential recovery of any additional hydrocarbon resources. Do you believe this statement?
Well, no. Again, well, I'm going to go back to the context of the Piazza hearing, and I totally disagree with that. I don't think that Empire at the time did not. They did not talk about ROZ hardly at all. In that, I think I don't even know if the term ROZ was discussed in that particular case. So I disagree with the statement of the OCD.
So I'm mostly interested, I'm looking at what was discussed there and then comparing to this hearing to see if there has been any changes in your thoughts. So then let's bring it back to this particular hearing. Do you believe that this statement applies or is true for the case that we are hearing now?
No, I think that Empire has done more work than they did at the time of the Piazza hearing, but I don't think that they've met their burden of proof, and they certainly haven't shown any intent of actually developing ROZ to date. They've had 4 years since they've purchased this field to go gather all new data that they are claiming that they need to have a more concrete answer about that, and they've chosen not to do so. So I think that well, I find it very interesting that they haven't done that. If they really believed in this project, why haven't they gone and done that to date? That's quite interesting to me, and I think it shows an ulterior motive here. But I think that they've had their chance, and we're at hearing today to discuss all of this, and they're still saying they need more time, and justice delayed is justice denied from our perspective.
So, sir, are you saying that Empire has not presented enough evidence to establish that there is a potential ROZ in the San Andres?
Well, I think that for this hearing, for the commission to revoke permits, I think that there needs to be overwhelming evidence to have this massive change in the regulatory environment. And no, I don't think that they've met that burden of proof at this hearing today.
Well, your experts, Dr. Davidson, Mr. Knight, all agree that they've been able to prove that there is existence of ROZ. So do you disagree with them?
Well, they definitely have. I did not get the impression whatsoever that they said that there is an ROZ in the disposal zone. For sure, they did not say that. I think their testimony speaks for themselves, and I agree with their testimony.
So you said that there is a higher burden on the commission to make a determination when it comes to revocation of permits. Do you agree that if the commission finds that there is existence of our potential ROZ in the San Andres, there's a justification to revoke the permits.
Well, it depends on what we're talking about the San Andres here. I would say that if you think that there is if you find that there's a potential ROZ in what Empire has defined as the San Andres above our confining layer that separates these two reservoirs, I think that would be unjust. Because there's no communication between our disposal zone and what Empire has called the ROZ or the San Andres. We call that Grayburg. To be frank, I don't care what you call it. It's a different reservoir than what is in the disposal zone.
So, sir, if there exists ROZ in the Upper San Andres, definitely I do know that Dr. Davison and Mr. Knight, they went through that extensively and also even shown where Goodnight is injecting into. Now, my question to you is, can you name the formation, the barrier, the name of the barrier, the name of the formation that separates even the Upper San Andres from the Lower San Andres?
Name the formation. Well, it's all within the San Andres, but like I've said, I've tried to stay away from that timing nomenclature and talk about the different reservoirs. So I think that's the more important thing here, as opposed to what name you give a particular interval of rock.
So if we go back and check the transcripts, Goodnight experts did not dissociate or did not delineate the Upper San Andres from the Lower San Andres?
No, again, I think that they were just talking about, it's confusing because we're using this timeline nomenclature to try to define these rocks, and I don't think that that's necessarily the best way to be talking about these two different reservoirs. I did hear Dr. Davidson say that there might be a potential ROZ in what Empire calls the Upper San Andres, but he definitely does not agree with Empire that there is an ROZ in the disposal zone of the San Andres,
which will be probably the Lower San Andres.
Not necessarily. I don't know how Dr. Lindsay is defining the Lower San Andres. I'm assuming it's another timeline. Again, I don't think that timeline separates. I don't think any given timeline necessarily separates two reservoirs.
So based on the cross, you talked about, discussion with NMOCD, and NMOCD agreed with your assessment. Is that still the case? Is that true?
But yeah, that's true. To my knowledge, I know that our company discussed with the OCD prior to filing the applications. We saw just before we approached the OCD that they had approved 2 commercial SWDs inside the unit. That would be the P15 and the N11. Subsequent to that, we wanted to, at that time, recomplete the Rhino well from the Devonian into the San Andres. And so we met with the OCD and discussed our thoughts and our applications. There was discussions about the nomenclature of the tops and how the top of the San Andres was inconsistently picked across the unit. They encouraged us to use a deeper top for the San Andres to give a larger standoff from the producing zone in the Grayburg. We then filed the applications, and they were subsequently approved by the OCD.
Why is OCD not here to confirm the statement, sir?
because we reached a sell. They were in this case because they had concerns about the Capitan Reef and its alleged communication with the San Andreas disposal zone. They wanted a monitoring program in the Capitan Reef to help them in case they got questions from the EPA about the Capitan Reef. We came to an agreement that we would do a monitoring program in the Capitan Reef, and that satisfied the reason that they were in this case and withdrew from it.
So you don't believe that if Phil was on the stand, this question was not going to be asked?
I didn't say that. You definitely ask Phil that question. Phil was in those meetings, to my knowledge.
You know, and you also talked about a discussion of the unitization documentation. It came up at some point during the application process. Can you comment on some of the discussions that were held between OCD and Goodnight?
Yeah, OCD was aware that this was inside the EMSU, and like I said, we weren't the first to do this. We had previously just seen the OCD approve these 2 other permits inside the unit and had discussions with them, and yeah, they were well aware that this was inside the unit.
So then why is OCD saying that you do not have the authority to inject into the San Andreas and thereby denied the Piazzo application?
That's a question for Phil, but to be clear, we do have the authority to inject into the San Andreas currently. We have 4 valid permits that were issued by the UIC department of the NMOCD, and with those permits, they give us the right to inject into our permitted interval.
Don't you believe that OCD tried to use that to correct the wrongs, or let's say the missteps, for approving those earlier permits?
That's not what the order said.
I'm just saying that. So I'm just saying that. And so then why is Phil not here to confirm, or at least, to discuss why he believed that you do not have authority to inject into the San Andreas?
I would love for Phil to answer those questions. To be quite frank, I wish he was still in the case to testify about all this stuff. I totally agree with you that I have a lot of questions for Phil.
You gave him a buyout.
They were pretty clear that they didn't want to testify, and but no, I agree with you. I wanted to see Phil answer some questions as well.
Yeah, but Phil is not here now. You've put in all the burden on the commission to make this tough decision, whereas OCD, they made all these decisions by approving these permits. And because of the settlement, OCD is not here to answer any of these questions.
I can see your frustration, and I'm somewhat frustrated with that as well. I guess the only thing I can say is talk to Phil. I wish I could listen in on that conversation. But yeah, unfortunately, he's no longer testifying in this case, and yes, I agree. I would love to ask Phil some questions.
Yeah, so OCD is not testifying in this case, but they do have statements that has been reported here as part of the evidence to the commission. So unless he's on the stand to dispute those, these are documents. So how do you dispute that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And Brandon Powell said that there needs to be overwhelming evidence to overturn prior decisions made by the OCD, and I don't think that there has been overwhelming evidence to change the status quo in this case.
So where is Brandon to more or less speak to that?
Same answer as the answer for Phil.
In the same way, it's all now up to the commission to make this tough decision after the settlement between Goodnight and OCD. Mr. Rankin, can we go to paragraph 26? Yeah, so in paragraph 26, you talked about the water management zone and the formation of the EMSU. Now, on paragraph 26, you said Rice Engineering drilled the SWD in April 1960, and you continue on with that. Now, so during the unitization hearing, why did Rice not, or let's say any other operator injecting into the San Andres, oppose the inclusion of the San Andres as part of the unitization interval?
Well, I can't speak for anybody, but if I were to guess, it would be because these two operations could coexist in the same space without affecting one another. That's what the data supports even to this day. There has been no confirmed communication between these two zones. There's been no effect on the oil production in the Grayburg, even though that there's been these massive amounts of water put into the disposal zone. I mean, the EME 33 has put more than 60 million barrels in the ground. It's on top of the structure, and we have. I mean, there's no evidence that affected any production. If these two operations couldn't coexist, that would have been found out many, many years ago, and we wouldn't be here because that disposal would have been shut in decades ago.
Mr. Rankin, let's go to paragraph 32. Now, in paragraph 32, you bolded, the San Andres was included in the unitized interval, not because it is hydrocarbon productive, but because it was to be used as a source of water supply for plant water flood. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Is that not supporting the section 10 of the unitization documentation that we went through?
No, I don't believe so. Just because it was unitized, it didn't mean that they had the rights to the water. They still had to go get state engineers permits to get those waters, to get that water. So it really didn't provide, the unit didn't really provide the unit operator really any advantage to having it in there. I'm just stating that because that's what was stated in the unitization, at the unitization hearing. I guess really the only thing that it maybe helped them with is that they could put their well wherever they wanted on the surface, as opposed to having to get a separate surface use agreement to do that. But it really didn't, other than that, it did not provide them any advantage to having the San Andres in the unit, because again, they still had to go through the state engineer's office to get those permits to withdraw all that water.
Yeah, I get that. They have to get all the permits, but are you saying that they do not have the first right to storing, producing from this unitized interval?
No, because it's because it hasn't been defined by primary production, it shouldn't be unitized. So that document, I think, erroneously included the San Andres, and the commission had no authority to unitize the San Andres at that time because it had not been defined by production, and there has to date has never been any production. So that still stands true today.
So why is that document not challenged anywhere?
We have definitely challenged it. We tried to move the commission to rule on that before this hearing, but they said that they wanted to hear all of this evidence before they made a determination on that. But it has definitely been challenged.
So, sir, if that documentation is challenged now, especially now that the unit operator has seen or more or less discovered that there could be a potential ROZ, how is that going to be challenged? Other than giving them the opportunity to proceed with the assessment to fully understand if this ROZ can in fact be recovered?
Well, for my understanding is for the commission to unitize an interval, it has to be reasonably defined by production. So to do that, Empire would have to go reasonably define the production, come back to the commission and say, this is why it should be unitized. That hasn't been done to date, so therefore it should not be in the unit right now.
I mean, you and I probably were not there at 1984, so definitely there should have been a reason for the commission at that time to make that determination. And even now, that Empire has shown the commission through the court, through their experts, that there could be a potential ROZ. Why should the commission more or less side with you on this issue?
I'm not a lawyer. I have my opinions on that, but at the time, the evidence that was presented at the unitization hearing does not support inclusion of the San Andreas in the unit, and therefore it would it should have never been included in the unit. To date, that it still hasn't met the defining factors for meeting unitization. And so even today, it shouldn't be in the unit. Like I said, Empire would need to go and reasonably define the San Andreas production, show where that is, and unitize it. But that hasn't been done to date, so it has no business being in the unit right now.
Well, so until that documentation is revoked, they do have the first say in the unitized interval. Is that correct?
I get, what do you mean by first say? I think I disagree with you, but I want to make sure I understand what you mean.
Okay, so the commission gave them the authority based on that unitization document that they have the rights to store, to produce. So until that documentation is revoked by the commission, they still do have those rights. Is that a fair assessment?
They have rights to the minerals inside of that unit. That doesn't necessarily give them rights to the pore space itself.
But the mineral is in the pore space.
Agreed, and they own that product, but not the pore space itself.
Yeah, but they own the product, so they have the first right to make a determination on it.
If there's product in the pore space.
And it's been established here to the commission that there is a potential ROZ, which has been confirmed by even your own experts.
Not in the San Andreas. It's definitely not in the disposal zone. So there should be a lower limit of that we're talking about here. And no, I do not think that has been clearly established by Empire.
So is there any way in that unitization document that really establishes the differences between the upper San Andreas and then the lower San Andreas?
There is not, and I don't think that we should really even be contemplating that, because even Empire agrees that there hasn't been primary production from the San Andreas. So therefore, it should never have been unitized. I think that this is a pretty simple answer that the commission could fix pretty quickly, and just say that they didn't meet their burden of proof to unitize this back in 1984. And if Empire wants to try it again, they're more than welcome to after they've reasonably defined the production.
But what the commission knows is that the unitized interval goes all the way up to the base of the San Andreas, which clearly we all know where the base of the San Andreas is. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think the base can be reasonably defined. Yeah, it's that one's a pretty clear chronostratigraphic pick.
Now let's go to 39. Oh, yeah, 40, paragraph 40. So paragraph 40, 41 42, 43 all shows all the wells that are in contention right now in front of the commission. So I want to ask you where you define the San Andres. Is that
Mhm.
where the wells have been perforated?
Yeah, so again, as I've discussed, the San Andres what we're calling San Andres here is the point that separates these two reservoir systems. And that's what I've put labeled as San Andres in these particular tables here.
And that is the same San Andres that more or less is in the unitization document. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if the commission finds that there is injection into an ROZ, these permits could be revoked. Is that correct?
I guess when you say, I think that it needs to be established that it is one, producible, and two, economic. Because if it's not producible and it's not economic, it's not waste.
So that would be for the lawyers to tell us whether it's a potential or it needs to be shown that it's recoverable. Let's go to paragraph 53. Yeah, so you've highlighted, and I think we probably touched on this a little bit, but I'm mostly interested in the engineering analysis that was done to really come up with this conclusion. So you said that with the depletion of the San Andres aquifer from NMS, you labeled the wells, water supply wells, along with the other 4 historical water supply wells in the EMSU. Goodnight Midstream's active and proposed disposal wells near the former water supply wells have very low operating pressures, creating an ideal situation for disposal injection operations. And my question is, how long would that continue? How long?
Good question. We've tried to predict it, but every time we try to predict it and we get a new data point on what the reservoir pressure is, it's not increasing, even given our mass amounts of water going into the system. I could point you to the bottom hole pressure information that we've provided here, and yeah, it's amazing how much water has come out of this and is currently going in, and we're seeing a de minimis change in that reservoir pressure. So to answer your question directly, I don't know exactly, but it appears right now, given the data that we have, it will be a quite some time before it were to reach back to what we would consider to be a normal pressure gradient. Be a very long time is what it looks like, but again, I'm just speculating, but the data that I have says that it's well into the future.
So let's discuss that for a moment. You know, as you go to the west, you talked about there is tight, porosity or something like that to the west. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And then does it pinch out in the east?
The formation doesn't pinch out, but yes, farther to the east, we do see a big reduction in the porosity. Yes, to the east.
So why is Goodnight continuously saying that we are injecting into a vacuum? Is there not, with all these boundaries that we've just gone through, is there not some kind of a boundary to the San Andres?
So I think the question you're asking, is this an open or closed system?
in a different way.
Yes, yeah, of course. So we have a boundary to the east where the porosity diminishes. We have a boundary to the west where the porosity diminishes. We are confined on top and we are confined on bottom. But I feel like this reservoir is so large that it is effectively acting like an open system, given given how the pressures are not really changing with the water that's going in. And that aligns well with the ROZ experts of these meteoric fairways. They've shown these fairways where this water has moved through the San Andres for hundreds of miles from central New Mexico all the way down to the southern end of the Central Basin Platform. Now, whether that system is closed on each one of those ends today, I haven't looked at it, but because that area is so large, when we zoom in just to the EMSU, it effectively is acting like an open reservoir in the north and south directions. But again, it's closed on the east side, it's closed on the west side, and it's closed on top, and it's closed on bottom.
So, sir, based on your description, does it support material balance analysis?
Well, I think the material balance analysis would show that exactly what I just described is that this is a massive reservoir. And that was part of Dr. Buckwalter's issue that he had in his model, is that he couldn't make the model big enough to accurately represent how the pressures aren't changing, given how much water has gone and continues to go into these reservoirs. I still think that his model wasn't large enough to accurately model this reservoir. But I mean, that's another data point that kind of supports what I'm saying here, was the difficulties that Dr. Buckwalter had in building his model.
So, Mr. West and then Dr. Buckwater, they presented a scenario. They accounted for the water supply wells. They also accounted for all the injection. They accounted for, let's say, at the end of the historical data, they did a scenario where there's a point where the water injection more or less fills it up to the initial San Andres water, let's say, distribution, and even continue with the model to show the injection and its impact, on the pressures within the San Andres. Is it your testimony that all of that is not a good scenario or a good model?
I cannot say that I think that Dr. Buckwalter's model is a good model in accurately representing this reservoir. I think he was on the way to the right answer, but I don't think he got there. And I definitely don't agree with the scenario that he is allowing for communication between the two zones. I would also disagree that he used all of the injection data and all of the water supply well data. He excluded many water with supply wells as well as injection wells, and Mr. Waymeyer tried to put a figure up there saying that, well, all this water in and all this water out that he was missing, it kind of equals out. Well, if you're trying to get a history match, you have to understand when that water went in and when that water went out. That's the goal, is to match the history, not just to say that we balanced this correctly. So no, I don't think that Dr. Buckwalter's model accurately represents this reservoir as he has it built today and what he presented to the commission.
What is your alternative?
We did not present a model. You're correct, and we discussed this, that we contemplated it, talked with John Macbeth about that, and we came to the conclusion that we don't have enough of the early history data to build a model that we felt would accurately represent the history. And we didn't want to present a data that we didn't think that we could stand behind given its input values, so we decided not to.
So let's go to 54. Yeah, and I'm interested in so I'll read where you bolded it. I'll just read the last part. I know we've talked about the earlier part, so let me just focus on the last part. Within the target injection zone, there are several thick intervals of porous and permeable carbonate rock with evidence of casting capable of accepting large volumes of produced water. Did you analyze the presence of the cast within the San Andreas and its impact on the upper formation? When you talk about their boundaries to the east, to the west, and confined, did you analyze the presence of the cast to fully ascertain the effectiveness of your boundaries?
Yes, I think we did. I think that we know that there's karsting. We have 3D seismic over this area that we can see that karsting in it. We can see that karsting does not affect the upper seal of the San Andreas. I think that the major difference that we know, the main reason that we know that this boundary is effective across the entire area is because of these major pressure differentials, indicating that there's two reservoir systems that are not in communication with one another. And I think that's really the ultimate test. Additionally, Dr. Lindsay wrote in his PhD thesis that the ultimate test that these two formations are not in communication is the pressure differences that are observed between these two formations.
Okay. Now, I thought you said that, yeah. So you said that, or did I hear you correctly saying that you had a seismic data to really ascertain this?
Yeah, we do have 3D seismic data over part of the field. That's correct.
Was this presented to the commission?
Unfortunately, it was not. There was issues with the I guess contract of that license data that we could not show it in a public forum, nor any derivatives of that data.
So during the cross-examination, I thought I heard you said that your boundaries were based on just porosity. So I'm curious, if you have a 3D seismic data, and as you and I, we all agree that we use 3D seismic to map up surfaces, why was it not utilized to solidify your case?
I just described why we couldn't use it. We don't have it over the entire EMSU, over the entire field. So I'm sure we would have been attacked that you don't have it over the entire EMSU. But we do see that there is an interval that equates to our map, and tried to stay away from that. But because you asked me about what other data that we have on the karsting, that would be it.
But I
Dr.
thought, Yes, sir.
Ampoma, I just note that it's almost 3 o'clock. I'm thinking people might need a 10-minute break. If you're in the middle of something, continue and just let us know when it's a good point for you.
Yeah, let me ask one last one before I forget. So
Sure.
Dr. Davidson used analogous wells to establish the existence of anhydrite, and try to look at the same signature and try to use it in the EMSU. So when you talk about you don't have the 3D seismic covering the entire EMSU, probably we are not going to more or less agree to that. The seismic data interpretation is just the structure, not showing us the entire 3D seismic in terms of if let's say you are concerned about confidentiality. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we could not show it in this public forum.
But you could
Because-
show that you could show if you pick up surfaces from it, you could show that.
No, we can't show any derivatives of the seismic data. That's what it says in the contract.
I will say, we are all in the industry, okay? We are all in the industry. So let me pause here and then let's go for a break and we'll probably be back. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's be back at 3:15. Mr. Shavers, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm ready to go.
All right, great. Let us know when we're back on the record.
We are.
All right, Dr. Ampoma, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rankin, can you share back the screen? Okay, thank you. And I want to go to paragraph 64. If you can scroll down to the bottom a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Magua, thank you for still sticking around. So I'm going to read the last three lines on the page 24, saying that the oil water contact for the units and EMSU oil pool is shown, and you've shown that on the cross section, yeah. And you said that the horizontal line at minus 325 feet below sea level. So my question to you is, did Goodnight confirm this oil water contact from the petrophysical analysis, or it was based on literature?
That is based on literature. That's from the unitization document itself.
So you did not do any additional work to confirm or to disprove that oil water contact?
No, we did not in this case. We had no reason to disagree with the unit documents and yeah, we did not. No.
Let's go to paragraph 72. Now, in paragraph 72, you're saying that the upper San Andres, and here you use the upper San Andres, right? So you're saying the upper San Andres is capped by tight dolomite and anhydrite, which serves as the upper geologic seal to prevent migration to the formation above, including the Greenberg and then on and on. Now, my question to you is, if there is a clear marker, because what you are describing here seems like a clear marker, why is it not widely established?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Well, if you know the question, you can go ahead. Yeah. Why is it not established?
Well, I think that's the difference between the chronostratigraphic pick of the San Andres and then what we've defined as the top of the San Andres being the barrier that separates these two reservoirs. I think the barrier that separates these two reservoirs, you can correlate across the field. That's what I've done. And my predecessor, I guess primarily my predecessor did before I stepped into my role. Yeah, I think that marker you can find across the field that and it's an aggregate of barriers that are that you can correlate across the field.
Okay. Thank you. Checking to see. Okay. I'm going to switch to your presentation and go through some few questions. Mr. Rankin, if you can bring up the presentation that was presented to the commission, that'll be helpful. Okay. Now let's start with number 2. And I'll be quick, I promise. Can you move to number 3? Let me see. Probably. Okay. You know, I do appreciate this slide a lot, even though so I went really hard on you on this one. Yeah. Thank you for that. Now, one thing that you did not talk about is the impact on the state of New Mexico. Empire has presented that. I mean, if they are not allowed to produce this oil, the state is going to lose significant amount of revenue, right? So in your estimation, if let's say these 4 wells more or less shut in, how much impact is it going to be on the state of New Mexico?
Well, I think it depends on how many of them are shut in. I did when I was describing, I think this slide or maybe the slide before we on average, the 4 wells, long-term average, the 4 wells inside the unit they inject about 60,000 barrels of water per day. If we use the overall water to oil ratio, that would equate to that we're supporting with that 60,000 barrels of water produced water disposal, that we're supporting about 19,000 barrels of oil per day. And I said in my opening statements there that if that 60,000 barrels of water per day of disposal is revoked, that would have an immediate impact on approximately 19,000 barrels of oil per day that would need to be shut in until it could find a new home for disposal, if it could find a new home for disposal. And then I guess to further answer your question, the next slide kind of went into the oil production that we have supported, oil sales in the state of New Mexico that we have supported in the past and looking forward. That's the next slide, I believe.
Yeah, and Mr. Wemaya also showed you the Enverus drilling info as you all attributed to that, saying that the cumulative liquid production in the state has really gone down. So he was also, he was arguing that there's still probably a home for the water that would probably more or less be coming to your injection site. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, that one threw me. Oil production and water production in the state of New Mexico is definitely not decreasing. It is increasing almost every day as new wells are being drilled. That one threw me. I got a little confused there on what I was looking at, but I can't think of any document that or any data set that shows that oil production is declining. We went back and looked at the numbers, and they're definitely not declining since 2023. They've only gone up and continue to go up, both oil and water production.
Can we go to slide number 18? Yeah. Well, this is something that we talked about. So, I just want to dive a little bit. So if you're saying that there is no clear marker for the top of the San Andres, which can be traced across the field, don't you believe that there is a lot of uncertainty associated with, let's say, the characterization of the entire San Andres in its totality?
Yeah, again, I think the chronostratigraphic top of the San Andres is very difficult to pick inside the EMSU. But I think that there's a clear confining layer that separates 2 reservoirs. The water management below, which acts as one reservoir, and everything above it, which is the producing zone, which acts and behaves as a different reservoir. And that is what I have defined as the functional top of the San Andres here at the EMSU. I can't say that it's the exact chronostratigraphic pick, but I do think that that is the point that separates these 2 reservoir systems.
So on slide 21, yeah, go back. Yeah, right now here. So how was the above management zone identified, or how was it established?
The interval that's colored in yellow in this figure?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the interval, that's the difference between what we have defined as the San Andreas and what Empire has defined in the San Andreas in this cross section. So Empire's top of San Andreas is the red. The top of our functional top of the San Andreas is the blue. And like I said, that where we have picked it is the point that separates these two reservoirs. So that yellow interval is what Empire calls San Andreas. We called it at Graybury. I don't care what you call it. It's a separate reservoir from everything that's below in blue.
So you're saying that, okay. Oh, okay. So, but that above management barrier, that was picked by Goodnight. That was more or less established by Goodnight.
No, the red barrier is Empire's top of San Andreas. We're just highlighting the interval that's in between that we call different things. But like I said, that interval that's highlighted as yellow does not, it acts as a different reservoir from the blue interval below. Which is how we know that these two intervals are not in communication with one another.
It sounds to me that the EMSU 628 well, it's much easier to pick these tops. Would you agree?
I think that there is a definite gamma ray marker right there about where we have picked the top of that water management interval, but that gamma ray marker is it's not that clear when you start going across the entire field. I know that I'm sorry for this conversation. I covered that in the 658, but that gamma ray marker it can come and go throughout the field, so it's not necessarily a very clean and correlable marker across the field. But what we can correlate across the field is the low porosity, low perm interval that separates these two reservoirs.
My last question to you, now probably before the last one. So there were a lot of discussion about corrosion, well integrity issues. I mean, is there a concern, with regards to well integrity in this area, at least for Goodnight wells?
No, I think that all of our wells are have integrity. We have to make sure that they have mechanical integrity on a consistent basis as per the permit, and we ensure that they are mechanically integrable. So
Mr.
specific
Rankin.
to our wells, I don't think that there's any issue with mechanical integrity of any of our wells.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rankin, can we go back to the previous document, paragraph 74? So that'll be my last question to you, sir. Now we've done a lot of back and forth on all the claims. You made a lot of claims in the rebuttal. I think I've covered most of it here, so I will not really bother you with that. But on your paragraph 74, do you still stand by the statement without any reservations based on the extensive discussion on the methodology that you use in picking these barriers? And from my opinion, I'm saying that these were not collaborated by any other Goodnight witnesses. So can you respond to that?
Yeah. So just to be clear, you're talking about the bold statement in paragraph 74 here.
Yeah. So it's more or less summarizing everything that you more or less talked about in terms of the seal and all of that. So I'm just asking, do you still stand by this statement, knowing that clearly other Goodnight witnesses did not actually collaborate extensively?
But well, no, I would disagree with that second statement that you have there. I think that the majority of our other experts said something to the same effect. We had many discussions throughout this process and collaborated extensively on this entire project with all of our consulting experts. We had many roundtables where we discussed the data and talked about the data as a whole. And in the end, all of those experts came to this same conclusion that I stated here in paragraph 74.
You know, I just spot something here in your rebuttal. Mr. Rankin was asking you about if Empire has reached out to Goodnight, to get a settlement or at least some discussion. And I think you said no. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We've reached out to Empire multiple times over the past few years to see if we could come to some sort of agreement, and they have refused to talk to us about any compromise that could be found in this situation here. And it wasn't for a lack of effort of trying on Goodnight's part. They just said that they didn't want to talk to us about it. So.
Even after Mr. Wheeler's testimony?
I don't think that we reached out after Mr. Wheeler's testimony, but no, they definitely didn't reach out to us after Mr. Wheeler's testimony.
Thank you, sir, for your time. I do appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a tough one. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Of course, yeah, thanks. Appreciate the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ampoma. So that brings us to you, Mr. Lampkin. Questions for Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, I still have a couple. Thankfully, Dr. Ampoma covered several of mine. Good afternoon, Mr. McGuire. Thank you for your time and testimony over the past couple days. Would you agree that it's difficult to draw conclusions for a development region the size of the IMSU using minimal data from a scant few wells and interpolate that across the development region in a shoreline environment such as this?
I might have to have you repeat that question. I want to make sure that I get it correct. Sorry, would you mind repeating your question? I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. For a development region the size of the IMSU, is it difficult to draw broader conclusions for the entire region based on data from a handful of wells in a regressing shoreline environment such as this?
I guess it depends on what data we're talking about here. Could you be a little bit more specific about what data you're referencing?
Well, there's been a bunch of testimony presented that would indicate that the reservoir is highly compartmentalized, based on the cartoons and pressure readings and lack of fluid transmissivity between wells and such like that. So I guess that's the underlying theme of the question. Can you say definitively that characteristics that you see in one well in one location in the IMSU are going to be representative of characteristics of the geology that you see in another well 2 miles away?
No, probably not. I think that the Grayberg Grayberg has more wells, and even in those tightly spaced wells, there's major differences between the geology that you see from well to well. And we know that this Grayberg is highly compartmentalized, as shown by Dr. Lindsay's study, as well as the conformance issues they've had on the field. We have less data on the full San Andres section, and it does appear to be a very complicated system. Again, I guess it depends on what specific data you're asking for, but I would tend to agree with you.
Okay. What would cause two wells that are injecting into the same reservoir? This is with regards to the fluid level testing that we've seen testimony on, that were shut in for similar amounts of time, show drastically different fluid levels aside from compartmentalization of the San Andreas.
Well, I guess I don't think that necessarily the fluid levels are that different, with the exception of the with the Piper well. Um, the Piper well was shut in for longer, so it had more time to equilibrate with the overall reservoir. And I think that if we were to shut in those other wells, that they would probably all equilibrate to close to the same fluid level, as they totally equilibrated with the overall reservoir and the pressures in the greater reservoir area.
Was the Piper well the well that Empire had a discrepancy with the fluid level reading? Because I think that I was more so comparing the Piper to that well.
Gotcha. So we're going back to the well, the Rhino well, where Mr. Waymeyer brought up and showed that it was at 750 feet. Yeah. So I went back and talked to some our experts on that, and as to why that fluid level was so high. And there was actually a plug in the well, and it was not open to the reservoir. We were doing an active workover. There was a plug in the well, and it was not open to the reservoir. They were looking for a potential casing leak, and we're continuously adding fluid on top of that plug. And so that's why that particular one was anomalous.
Okay, thank you. Can you remind me which well the spinner log was run?
It was run in the Rhino. There was another spinner log that we looked at that's in the Ted well, which is outside the MSU, but the main one that I referenced was the Rhino.
Could you, Mr. Rankin, bring up, let's see, that exhibit B5, I believe it is again, the cartoon. B9, sorry, B9. So it looked like on that spinner log you guys ran, that you testified that the majority of the fluid was going into a perf at 4835. Isn't that smack dab in the middle of one of your barriers on this cartoon?
No, if we zoom into the Rhino well on that. Yeah, so the spinner survey stopped at about 4835, but all of that indicates that all of the fluid was going into those perfs above that. So I think that the majority of that fluid was going into those two set of perfs right there at 48. Yeah, 4750 to 48. Those two sets of perfs. That's where I think that water was going. There's no perforations in that barrier there, so it clearly wasn't leaving the well at exactly 48 35, or I can't remember exactly what Mr. Waymeyer had on the screen there.
Okay. For your Llano disposal network, what proportion of the contracted fluid is being disposed of in the 4 wells within the boundary of the unit?
Well, it depends day to day. The way that these contracts work is that they send us, well, they're all a little different. But for the relative proportion, I guess I couldn't speak to that right now, but you know, we have 11 active wells right now, and these 4 wells that are right here are 4 of the best, although Dawson and Banks are rate limited, whereas the other ones are not rate limited. Well, I guess Sosa is limited at 42,000. So these 4 wells are taking a large proportion of that contracted volume.
Was the 60,000 barrels of water per day you mentioned total network disposal, or was that the wells within the MCU boundary?
No, that was specific to those 4 wells. They a long-term average, they do about 15,000 barrels of water per day. So that's how I got to my 60,000 barrels for those 4 wells.
Okay, thank you. Can you remind me what the historic incompatibility, the reasoning for the historic incompatibility between Grayburg and San Andres formation water was?
I don't know exactly what constituents caused the incompatibility. All I can point to is the Chevron paper that where they state that it was known to be incompatible. They did not go into details as to what constituents created that incompatibility.
Okay. What is your understanding of
Well, I guess I guess I'd rather not get out on that limb. I guess I can't really confirm that, but they did say that they said they had issues with barium and sulfate, and then they decided to put that San Andres water into the Grayburg, and so there was some scaling that was associated with barium and sulfate.
That was my recollection as well. Is the Delaware Basin production water going to exacerbate those differences in formation waters?
By injecting it into the San Andres disposal zone?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would have to. The sulfate content of our injection water is roughly equivalent to the sulfate content of the water that's in the San Andres. But again, they've been putting Grayburg water into the San Andres for more than 50 years. So what is it today? It's definitely not Greenfield anymore. So it's a complicated story.
No, wait, let me back up a little bit. What is your understanding of the OCD's level of involvement or tracking of unit progress post unitization?
I guess I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Would it surprise you to hear that they don't have much of any involvement?
I guess it would not surprise me, no.
Did Goodnight have any discussions with the acting unit manager at the land office prior to applying for injection within the MZU boundaries?
You're talking about at the state land office?
At the land office, yeah.
I know that my predecessor had some conversations with the state land office. They did protest some of our SWDs. My predecessor met with the state land office and they ended up withdrawing their protest.
Yeah, I believe those protests were mainly surrounding pore space issues and not injection into the unitized interval. Do you think that it would have behooved Goodnight to meet with the person managing units at the land office prior to applying for these wells?
Yeah, I'm going back through my head because I know I've had conversations with Mr. Drake about conversations he had with different folks at the state land office. Now, whether he talked to the person you're describing that was overseeing the units, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm not sure if those conversations occurred.
Do you believe that the upper and lower San Andres should be separated under different pools by the OCD?
Well, I guess that's a complicated question because how are you going to define what is upper San Andres versus lower San Andres? Um, I guess maybe, but I don't I don't feel comfortable speaking too much on that right now until I had more information.
Okay. Do you know if there's production in the San Andres to the north or south of the MCU historically?
How far?
Um, I would just say on trend. I don't think distance necessarily matters.
I guess I haven't looked too far, but on trend north and south, I don't believe that there is any San Andres production. I think it's all Grayburg and the Artesia group.
Is that something that the OCC should be concerned with, considering you testified that the water is migrating primarily to the north and south?
Well, I guess I didn't necessarily say that. I said that's the direction that it's open. My opinion is that it's probably migrating south down dip, given the differences in the salinity. The water that we inject is denser than the native water. So just my opinion, haven't done a study on it, but I would anticipate that the water would migrate south down dip. And no, there's no production to the south in the San Andres for a very, very long distance.
Can you remind me under what circumstances the quote unquote world-class disposal reservoir was discovered by Goodnight?
Yeah, so when we started looking around for where to develop a project for this, so we started looking at where has the most water been moved in any reservoir, and we looked around the whole Permian Basin, and we keyed off of the water supply wells that were in this area. Originally, we saw how much water had come out of the reservoir, and at the rates that it came out of the reservoir. That's how we identified this specific area. We then started looking at. We noticed that there was other SWDs that were already operating in this area. We did an analysis of those SWDs and noticed that they had put ginormous volumes in the ground. They could achieve pretty high rates at zero surface tubing pressure. So we knew that that the transmissivity of this reservoir was very, very high, which is ideal for disposal operations because injecting at low pressures is a good thing. And we also noticed that there's all these large injection volumes that had and there had never been any claims of communication or interference from that large injection volume. So that's how we settled on this particular area.
Has Goodnight performed any studies to ascertain the size of the reservoir?
No, we have not, but like I said with Dr. Mpoma, just given the way that all of these wells, the water supply wells and the water disposal wells have behaved over the last 50 plus years, it has to be very, very large because we're not seeing any pressure increases for given that large volume of water that's gone in the ground. So no, I have not quantified how large it is, but I can say that it is quite large.
Thank you for your time. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lampkin. We come full circle back to you, Mr. Rankin, for redirect of Mr. McGuire.
Chair Rosales may have a question or two.
I actually do.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Rosados. Excuse me. It's getting
No
late.
worries. Yeah, I understand. Mine will be quick. I have two questions. Mr. Rankin, if you could just stop sharing your screen so I can see Mr. McGuire. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. McGuire, thank you for your time. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. So thank you so much for that. Two questions from me. A lot of discussion has been around how fluids are migrating in this area. In the permits, what is the standard area review when permitting these type of permits? Do you know what the standard area review is?
Yeah, I permit wells in 3 different states that have different AORs. I think it's a mile or 2. I can't remember specifically off the top of my head, but it's one of those 2. It's either a mile or 2 miles.
Okay. So whether it's a mile or 2 miles, my follow-up question to that is, in your opinion, are the fluids contained within that mile or 2 miles or within that area laterally?
There's been a lot of discussion about that. I have not studied that in detail, so I would be uncomfortable to give you a direct answer right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Also, there's a lot of discussion. My next question, there's a lot of discussion regarding the units themselves and how the unit is formed and unit this and unit that. Do the units regulate mineral rights?
They do.
Okay. Do they affect water rights?
No, that's under the purview of the state engineer's office, I believe.
Okay. So what kind of rights are the SWDs running under?
I guess that's a legal question that I'm again uncomfortable giving you an answer right now. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. So then my follow-up with that is, if and you may know this, you may not know this, but did Goodnight evaluate to see if the agreement, the unit agreement, is based on mineral rights and if it affects the water rights or the surface rights in the area?
I'm sure that somebody has done that associated with Goodnight through council or somebody else, but yeah, I guess I can't. Well, can you ask it one more time just to make sure I'm not missing something here? I'm sorry.
Sure. Has Goodnight evaluated to see if the unit agreement that is in place is based, that the unit agreement that is based on mineral rights, has it affected water rights or surface rights?
No, I think the unit agreement has everything to do with the minerals that are in that pore space, not necessarily the pore space itself.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. My apologies.
No, that's that I'll stick with that answer.
Okay. So, and that was your opinion, but the question was, has Goodnight evaluated to the actual unit agreement?
Yes, I think through council that we've looked at the unit agreement in detail.
Okay. Excellent. Those were my questions, Mr. Hearing Officer. I appreciate it. Mr. McGuire, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chairman Rosatos. I guess before I return it to you, Mr. Rankin, let me double check with Mr. Chandler. Mr. Chandler, second chance. Do you have any questions for Mr. McGuire?
I do not.
All right, then at this point, I believe it actually is back to you, Mr. Rankin, for redirect.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. Appreciate it. Mr. McGuire, do you recall during your testimony and cross-examination with Mr. Waymeyer, where he asked you about a notice of violation that was issued in Oregon for some waste?
Yes, I do.
And he referenced that violation. Is this a copy of the violation that was issued by Oregon to the entity that was responsible for that issue?
Yes.
Okay. And it was not issued, that state of Oregon did not identify Goodnight Midstream as responsible for that issue. Is that your understanding?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you recall, Mr. McGuire, during the course of your cross-examination with Empire Counsel, his question for you about the what he called the Marston lawsuit in Texas?
I do.
Do you recall that in your discussion with Mr. Waymeyer, you and he confirmed that Goodnight Midstream had won that lawsuit on the basis of summary judgment? Do you recall that?
I do.
And do you recall that Mr. Waymeyer told you in his questioning that that lawsuit was now on appeal, or was at the time on appeal at the 8th District of Texas?
I do.
On the screen here, am I showing you the front page of, is this the case caption reflecting that appeal in the 8th District of Texas?
It is.
And Marston's identified, and Blackbeard and Goodnight Midstream are identified, correct?
They are.
And if I scroll to the bottom of this memorandum opinion, and again, this is from the 8th District Court of Appeals in Texas, correct? Okay.
It is.
Yep.
Yep.
When I scroll to the bottom of this memorandum opinion, it's dated December 12th, 2024, correct?
It is.
And I've highlighted here at the end of the conclusion, it states that, quote, the Marstons failed to meet their burden in responding to Blackbeard and Goodnight's no evidence motion for summary judgment. The judgment below is affirmed. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Okay. Is your understanding that this appeal is final and that there's been no appeals from this decision?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you. There's some discussion about with Dr. Mpoma about the questions you received from Mr. Waymeyer about recent production of oil and produced water in New Mexico. Do you recall that testimony between yourself and Mr. Waymeyer?
I do.
And you told Dr. Mpoma that you were, I guess, confused or taken aback or surprised by the presentation of the data that Mr. Waymeyer showed you. Do you recall that?
I do. Yes.
So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to show you a I went to the OCD last night and I pulled down a report, and this is the report. The only change I made to it was I highlighted a couple of columns, but it's the New Mexico OCD Division Natural Gas and Oil Production Report dated Friday, May 16th, 2025. I think that's the most recent update for the data. And I've highlighted the column here that says oil, southeast oil wells, and the column that says production, water, and southeast oil wells. I'll scroll down to, and if I slowly scroll, you'll see the volumes, annual volumes for each year. And when I get up to around 2021 and 2022, you'll see, tell me, are you seeing any decline in the oil production or in the water production from southeastern New Mexico?
No, I'm not.
Is it in fact going up?
It is continuously going up.
And is it going up between 2024 and 2020, between 2023 and 2024?
It is.
So I'm going to share with you another document that I prepared. It's a graph using that same data showing the OCD data on a per day basis for oil production and water production. Water production is in blue and the oil production is in green. Does this curve, do these two curves look more like what you understand current water production and oil production in southeastern New Mexico to look like?
They do.
Do you recall Mr. Waymar's questions of you about the 1998 Love paper that is Goodnight Cross Exhibit number 1?
I do.
Do you recall him asking you questions about a reference to bottom water in the paper, suggesting that the paper was referring to bottom water coming up from the San Andres? Do you recall that?
I do.
And you disagreed with him at the time when he asked you. You disagreed that the reference was to San Andres bottom water. Is that right?
That's correct.
Why did you disagree with him on that basis?
Because Tracy Love in a 2000 division hearing testified that the only unaccounted for water in the unit was edge water.
And that testimony that you're referring to was included in your included in your testimony as an exhibit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Just so we can confirm, I think it was actually a rebuttal. One moment. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Is this your exhibit B50, and does this reflect the testimony that you're referring to just now of that was provided by Mr. Love in the year 2000?
I'm sure it is if you share your screen.
Oh, there you go. I think after 5 weeks of this, I would figure that out. You go back to the top so you can see the beginning of that exhibit. Is this your exhibit B50 showing the testimony from Mr. Love in that 2000 hearing?
It is.
Okay. And this testimony was provided within 2 years of that paper being published. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was 2 years after that paper was published. That's correct.
Okay. Do you recall Mr. Waymar's questions to you yesterday about the EMSU 679 core and Dr. Lindsay's core analysis?
I do.
If there were extensive fracturing in Goodnight's confining layer, allowing communication with the overlying Grayberg, can you explain how the pressure differences that you discussed yesterday would be possible between what you've identified as Goodnight's disposal zone and the overlying reservoir?
Yeah, that pressure differential would not be possible. Those formations would equilibrate with each other if there was communication between these two different reservoirs.
Okay. Do you recall Mr. Waymar's examination of you on the Piazza order yesterday?
I do, yes.
I think he was asking about one particular paragraph 11 of the order, where it states, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that Empire has provided sufficient evidence for continued assessment of the unitized interval for potential recovery of any additional hydrocarbon resources remaining in place. Do you recall the discussion yesterday with Mr. Waymire on that point?
I do.
Now, when I scroll down, this order was issued at the end of November of 2023, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's how many months ago was that approximately?
17, 18 months, maybe, something like that.
Okay. And in the same order, in paragraph 2, the division orders that Empire is to provide monthly, is to reinstitute its obligation to provide monthly reports to both the OCD and the State Land Office. Do you see that in the paragraph there?
Yes, I do. Yep.
To your knowledge, in the 17 months since this order has been issued, has Empire provided any plans or stated any plans or explained what it's doing to undertake or evaluate as part of its continued assessment the potential for additional hydrocarbon recovery in the EMSU and its monthly reports?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you recall the testimony and examination that Mr. Waymire conducted against you on the Verlander well?
I do, yes.
Do you recall, and he was asking you about the fact that Goodnight had decided to drill its validly permitted Verlander well, even though Empire had filed an application to revoke its injection authority?
I do.
Do you recall when he asked you why Goodnight did not just ask the division for an extension that, in his words, are easily granted by the division?
I do.
Can you explain whether Goodnight recently filed an application for an extension of time to drill another SWD outside the EMSU?
Yeah, we tried to get an extension on the rocket.
And we're approximately relative to the EMSU, where is that located?
About a mile outside the unit.
In which direction?
South.
Okay. What happened when you filed for an application to extension of time on that well?
Yeah, it was protested and got hung up. We weren't able to get the extension.
Who protested it?
Empire.
Okay. And the division did not approve that extension request, correct? Because it's pending protest by Empire, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that application to extend the rocket was filed before Goodnight decided to drill the validly permitted Verlander, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In that case, the protest under the rocket is currently pending before the commission, and the cases that are not right now before the commission?
That's correct.
Okay. And Empire decided to drill the Verlander at its own risk, correct?
Goodnight did, yes.
I'm sorry, Goodnight did. Goodnight decided to drill the Verlander at its own risk, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Earlier today, do you recall questions from council for Empire addressing a single Grayburg water flood injection well that in the exhibit he showed you had a lower pressure than what is reflected in your documents in the San Andreas?
I do.
Can you tell me whether you believe that pressure reading in the Grayburg is representative of the Grayburg?
I do not think that it's representative of the Grayburg as a whole, no.
What's your basis for that?
Well, as we've discussed a lot in this case, it's a highly compartmentalized reservoir. Just because this one well was at a lower pressure does not mean that the entire Grayburg is lower pressure. Furthermore, we drilled our wells very near this data point, and we were able to hold a column of drilling fluid while drilling through that zone. And then when we passed through the confining layer that separates the disposal zone, we had a complete loss of circulation. So that indicates to me that those two reservoirs are completely different. In fact, that the Grayburg would be higher pressure than the San Andres. So while that one, you'd have to look at where that well is perfed, is it in direct communication with an offset producer. That would explain why that one particular zone may have been under pressure, but it's definitely not representative of the entire Grayburg Reservoir.
Do you recall Mr. Waymar's question of you asking you whether you agree that Empire brought witnesses to this hearing who have actual expertise in RRZ and referred to Mr. Melzer and Dr. Trentham?
I do.
Is it your understanding, did Empire provide Mr. Melzer or Dr. Trentham or allow them to review any actual data on the EMSU or the San Andres or the purported RZ in the EMSU other than the core data?
No, they did not. They were totally unaware of a lot of the details associated with the San Andres. They had no idea that these water supply wells were here, how much volume they took out of the ground. They didn't know really anything about those wells or a lot of the San Andres Reservoir as a whole in this particular area.
In your experience, Mr. McGuire, is it reasonable if you're going to put up an expert in an area to not give them the data to review that relating to the underlying issues that any reasonable RZ expert would want to review?
I have an objection. The idea of what experts do or don't do, it's very clear that this witness knows nothing about being an expert or how experts work.
Sustained.
Okay, I'll move on. Mr. McGuire, do you recall the examination by Mr. Waymeyer about the radial plume demonstratives that he was showing you?
I do, yes.
In your opinion, do you believe that radial plume modeling is appropriate in this context?
No, not for this particular reservoir, given its heterogeneity. Radial flow does not typically occur in the carbonate reservoir.
Okay. Do you recall questions from council about whether Goodnight is injecting, I think the way it was phrased was injecting into Empire's San Andres? Do you recall questions around that line of questioning?
I do.
Did you understand that to mean the San Andres as a formation as opposed to ownership rights or rights to that were exclusive to Empire?
Yeah, I was talking about the formation. I was not speaking to ownership or anything like that.
Mr. Hearing Officer, I believe I'm done. I just want to make sure that I have the opportunity to confer with my client real quick. But I think that's all the only questions I have on redirect for Mr. McGuire. Let me just confer with my colleague one moment. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. I just wanted to confer with my colleague. Yeah, no further questions on redirect for Mr. McGuire.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rankin. So It's about 4:15 p.m. Chairman Rosado, so what are your thoughts? I guess let me make sure at this point that a good night. I take it then at this point you rest your case.
I believe, Mr. Hearing Officer, we have completed the presentation of all of our witnesses. So yes.
All right, and may the long-suffering Preston McGuire be excused.
Yes.
For Empire, in light of the testimony that just came out on redirect, we're going to move to admit Empire Cross Exhibit 12, which is the entire workover report reflecting no plug in the wellbore. Other than ensuring as a procedural matter, we can admit Empire Cross Exhibit 12, which is the entire workover report. In light of the redirect testimony, we don't have any objection to him being excused.
Thank you, Mr. Waymeyer. Any objection, Mr. Rankin, to that exhibit being admitted and made a part of the record?
Mr. Hearing Officer, I guess I'd like to just before we agree to what's being admitted, I'd like to make sure that it is the complete workover report. But other than that, I have no other concerns about it. But I myself haven't seen it in its entirety, so I would like to see what Mr. Waymeyer is planning or proposing to admit. So short of that, no other considerations on my part.
Okay, I guess my thought on that is why don't the two of you confer after we go off the record for the day today, and we can take that up as a preliminary matter tomorrow morning. Does that sound reasonable to you folks?
That's perfect. As a procedural matter, as we've closed testimony and before the last witness was excused, I wanted to make sure we'd made the offer.
All right. And just to round out the field, Rice, assuming Mr. Rankin and Mr. Waymeyer agree on what the exhibit actually is, do you object to it?
No.
All right, Pilot, same question.
I would like to review this evening, but I don't expect that we would have any objections either.
All right. So we'll do that. We'll take that up as a preliminary matter tomorrow morning. And I'm assuming then that tomorrow morning we'll move directly into your respective closing arguments. Is that what you anticipate, Mr. Waymeyer, you first?
Yes, that's the intention of Empire.
Mr. Rankin, that's not a surprise to you, I imagine.
No, it's not. We had a chance to discuss briefly yesterday, and given the uncertainty of how today would turn out, it's reasonable to pick all this up in the morning.
Do you guys each have an estimate of about how long you think your closings might take?
I thought we agreed to 1 hour at some point, which is still good with Empire, but you got us onto schedule, and this might be the first time we have a little bit of time to spare.
Just don't put me on the. I agree. I'm planning to keep it to 1 hour. I think my understanding is that what we agreed to. So I'm happy to keep it to that time frame.
Okay, it's been too far in the past for me to remember if there was an actual agreement or not, but how about we hold you both to that in spirit, and we'll give Rice and Pilot a few minutes if they want to add something in closing. Does that sound reasonable?
I think Rice can probably get it done in an hour.
Oh, you want an hour as well? Or you?
No.
Am I seeing a smile on your face there?
You are. Yes,
Ah.
that's yeah. I don't expect we'll be long.
And Mr. Harwood, as a procedural matter, with us making the first opening statement and having the case in chief presented first, we would hold back 15 of our hour in rebuttal.
Okay, perfect. That works. That works. It's fair. All right. You guys talk over that exhibit and we'll take that up first thing in the morning. Sorry, Mr. Rosados. Now back to you.
I just wanted to make sure, did we actually release Mr. McGuire? Is he officially excused?
I think he is. He's persists in appearing. I guess it's a habit by now.
I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure because I wasn't sure I heard it, so that's why.
Yeah, I didn't hear the excusal, so just wanted to make sure.
I think you're
All
excused,
right.
Mr. McGuire. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we'll adjourn till tomorrow morning and be back here at 9 o'clock for what I hope is a brief discussion of this exhibit and then everyone's closing arguments.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye for now.